Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. We're going to get started in just 1 minute here. I see some people still joining. We'll just wait 1 second, and then we will begin. Okay, thank you guys for joining. We're excited. So I am Kate Fucci. I'm the Director of Marketing here at CTM Media Group. I'm super excited to spend the next 20 minutes or so with everyone. We're going to be sharing some really interesting ideas and suggestions with you today. And hopefully you'll walk away from today's webinar feeling just as excited about what we're going to be going over as far as design.
Hi everyone, I'm Kristen Duran, Art Director here at CTM Media Group, and I just want to say thank you for joining us today as we review brochure and rack card design tips. We hope you find them helpful for creating exciting pieces to tell your story.
Okay, so we'll go over a few key design tips today that hopefully will be of value to you as we walk through the webinar. So Visitor International worked with Bentley University last summer to conduct a visitor information survey. The survey uncovered that 79% of visitors picked up a brochure last year during their trip while searching for something fun to do. That's really exciting news. And as tourism marketing experts, we want to help you create an awesome brochure or rack card or even a map ad that really maximizes your exposure and stands out in the stands. Okay, so in our years of experience, we found that the best brochures are the ones that are authentic, easy to understand, and really show the fun and clearly define the experience you're offering your audience. So this allows you to connect with each potential customer that self-selects your brochure right at the moment they're looking for something fun to do. So pictures that really capture the experience are key when designing your brochure. So the first tip we're going to go over today is the headline. So think of the top 2.5 inches of your brochure or rack card as your mini billboard. So the headline message should be the top third of the front panel and should immediately suggest to the visitor what the brochure or rack card is about. A headline should also be printed on the back panel in case someone picks up your brochure and happens to put it back in the stand backwards. So this way, whenever someone walks up, they'll always, find your piece there, even if it's put backwards. So the important part about your headline is defining your experience. So be sure to create an eye-catching headline that includes the experience you offer in addition to your business name. So most tourists may not be familiar with your brand and your logo alone. Let your audience know who you are and what you do in a simple, clearly stated headline. This is super important. And most often than not, a visitor will not recognize your logo alone. So this is why we feel it's important to speak about your experience. Include words that relate to what you do. So here are some examples. Zoo, tour, boat ride, zip line. These are excellent examples of calling out the experience. The more an individual is able to grasp what you have to offer by simply just reading your headline, the higher your chance of pickup will be. Okay, tip number 2, content strategy. Brochures and rack cards need to invoke an emotional connection with your audience. In addition to being eye-catching and nice-looking, your brochure must show fun and excitement. Visitors are generally looking to experience something new and unique, and the best way to pique their interest is to show pictures of what they can expect to experience when they visit you.
Okay, so who is your audience and target market? Identifying your piece's objectives will not only influence the design and layout of your brochure, but it will dictate your target market and audience. everything that you include on your brochure is a direct communication with your market. So be sure to make your piece of your location. Think, local, as your piece should be authentic and indicative to your geographic area. By showing the fun of your business, you can drive awareness through targeted groups, whether they're families, thrill seekers, foodies, women. Research has proven that women play the largest role in decision-making in market. They're typically the trip organizer and the decision maker when it comes to selecting experiences and fun things to do for the entire group. Okay. So keep it simple. When designing a rack card or a brochure, it's important to have a clear message. Using simple English is best. The more complex the words, the harder it is to convey your objective. Simple statements and bulleted information help outline important details. It isn't necessary to, overload your rack card with all your information about your business. Too much information usually, overwhelms and confuses your visitor. So simple design can be incredibly effective. It doesn't necessarily equate to being boring. So here you can see an example of the Empire State Building brochure. It's very clean, elegant, and modern. The graphics really speak for the attraction, and the information is organized in a clear, concise manner. Call to action. So while designing your piece, be sure to include a call to action. This clear statement should emphasize what you have to offer your visitor or to give spotlight to your accolades, such as any favorable awards, rankings you've received, on TripAdvisor or Yelp. Even if you have a well-designed brochure, it's important to have some sort of call out to provide motivation for your audience to react. And as you can see here on this slide, you see many call-outs can be, bold text. You can put a band across here, as you can see with the Escher, an extension to their exhibit. You have starbursts and, again, different font treatments to really stand out on the card. And then, of course, contact information. Don't forget, of course, to include your company name, logo, address, and the rest of your contact information. Where your business is on social media. This way, you can drive traffic to your different social media channels.
Okay, so tip number 3, visual appeal. So creating an eye-catching, colorful brochure, rack card, or even map ad is the best way to get noticed. Be sure to use high-resolution photos and logos. The quality of your imagery is so important. Your logo represents you and your business. It should be crisp, sharp, and professional looking, as should all the imagery used to represent who you are to your potential customer. Remember, this is your moment to leave a first impression.
Okay, so let's talk about photography. We've all heard the saying, a picture is worth 1,000 words, and it really does speak the truth. People are visual. You can tell your story with photos versus lots of text. We can all attest to picking something up due to its aesthetics, whether it was really beautiful or how cool it looked. So something that comes up a lot is resolution. So what is resolution? Resolution refers to the amount of detail in an image. A common term used for measuring resolution is DPI, which stands for dots per square inch. This is a measurement that printing companies use to determine how sharp an image is. And here you can see below there are 2 graphics of this flower. So on the left-hand side, higher resolution photos contain more detail than lower, as you can see. High resolution graphics must have 300 DPI or more to maintain print quality at 100% scale. Low resolution web graphics are 72 DPI, as you can see on the right-hand side, and these have less detail and are much smaller in file size, as they're compressed to load quickly onto your web browser. Since the quality of the images are lesser, they will print blurry or pixelated, and you can see that here as well on the flower. There are lots of many little squares. And these are unacceptable for professional printing at 100% scale. So one thing to take in mind, if you have a bad image to start with, if it's blurry or already pixelated, it will print that way even though it is high resolution. So what you see on your original image is exactly what will print. Okay. So when you're ready to start your brochure, you can take advantage of this opportunity to get creative. You could put together a photo shoot to really show the authenticity of your business. If you don't have any photos, know that there are many photo resources available to you online. Here, as you can see on this slide, there are a few stock photography sites that you can utilize to find, stock images to really tell your story.
And keep in mind, you don't need to be a professional photographer to take some really great pictures, of your experience. You can use most cell phones these days have great cameras that you can take advantage of and really set something up to capture what you're looking to capture.
Okay. So composition. So before we get into the many steps of composition, I'd just like to mention that CTM does offer graphic design services for those who are interested or would like any assistance with putting together an effective brochure or rack card. So as we get into this, so step one, when you're starting the design process, I would recommend a brainstorming session, something very simple. Try sketching out some ideas and concepts. This will really help you organize your information and your photo usage throughout your piece. As you pull your materials together, think about the information hierarchy. Typically, most engaging information and imagery is at the top of your panel, and minor details kind of flow towards the bottom. So as you can see here on the slide, on-location tours organize their different tours by image, color, and information. The information nicely flows within each panel. Okay. And while you're designing, another thing to think about is the harmony between imagery and text. As we mentioned before, you don't need a lot of copy to tell your story. Here you can see with Maury's, there's a nice balance between information and graphics. Maury's has included a large visual there in the center and a band of images showing the fun on the bottom. There's also a call out on top showcasing awards and an orange banner to bring attention to text. The composition is very effective and the message is extremely clear. Okay. So during your layout process, consider how your brochure folds. This will help, this will dictate the presentation of your information per panel. So for example, with Helly, New York, the brochure is a double gatefold, which opens up to a spread of an aerial view of New York, as you can see, and many photos of the city. And then that again opens up to an organized layout of each tour per panel. An example of a unique fold would be this Lake Compounce brochure. The panels fold unconventionally by folding longwise. So with the front fold being slightly shorter than the back panels, you can see the wording, "Make it an unforgettable day of family fun." So this pops out from behind once the piece is unfolded. And lastly, don't forget to utilize both sides of your card. As we mentioned before, visitors peruse the stand and someone may place your card into the stand backwards. So be sure to include call outs and important information on both sides.
I can't tell. She said it's only like 20 minutes.
So I'm
sorry, would you mind just muting your phone if you happen to be on?
No. Okay.
Speaker, thank you.
Great. So typography. So font choices are very important when designing your piece. Limit your fonts. You should have a bold or decorative font for your heading or callouts, and then a legible one for your subheading and body copy. Be mindful of the decorative font. So it should be eye-catching, but easy to read. You can also You can also be dynamic with different font sizes. Again, something to be conscious of is the size of the font. With the body copy, font size shouldn't be any smaller than 8 to 10 point for legibility. And then again, there are many free font resources out there for decorative, bold, or trending fonts. As you can see on this slide, here are just a couple of sites that you can utilize. And then construction. So after you've completed designing your rack card, you can be creative with paper as a medium to engage your audience. You know, consider different paper stocks or the orientation of your rack card. There are many options. You can use thicker paper. You could create a dynamic die cut at the top of your rack card with rounded corners or other shapes. There's metallic foil embossing or special coating and varnishes that can also help pop your card and bring attention to call out, text, or any design elements. Okay, and then of course, be creative and have fun. Remember, your rack card or your brochure doesn't have to be boring. You can break conventions. You can have text run in different directions, you know, as you can see here on the wheel rack card. Or you could use typography to engage your audience, such as the escape room example here. You know, using different color combinations is also very effective. Colors such as yellow and red are proven to be the most eye-catching to visitors. Okay. And then lastly, don't be afraid to design a brochure or rack card that people will take home. The best brochures and rack cards become mementos and keepsakes. Popular landmarks such as the Empire State Building and World Yacht in New York have had many visitors take their brochures home to keep as a souvenir. Okay. And so this leads us to questions and answers. If anyone has any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
So we did get an interesting question come over asking if any research has been done to show if there's a higher pickup rate between a brochure versus a rack card. I do not know of any research that's been done or if we have that, so I will definitely look into that. I think that's a pretty interesting question, so we can take that back and get that sent out if we have any information on that. I'm curious myself, so I will do some research and find out for you. If anyone has a question, you can submit it through the screen and we can see it.
Okay. Oh, so recommendation of design templates using an iMac. Creative Suite does have some templates loaded. I know in Photoshop you can bring up a couple of them. But also if you're looking for brochures or rack cards, we have some templates here that we could help, we could send you, and if that would be helpful. Okay, so are there standard dimensions that generally stick out of the rack at the top? So all rack cards and brochures, the standard size is 4x9. So those are the dimensions that are recommended since that's industry standard. If you are going to include a die line or a die cut at the top, I would recommend not going too much higher than 9 inches, as that will block other cards in the stand and cause a couple of issues when they're filled. So how do I feel about drop shadow? That's a very good question. When it comes to drop shadow, I use it sparingly. It's a great effect, but as you design a piece, sometimes people get a little too happy with things like an outer glow or a drop shadow. So I feel they can be effective, but they should be used appropriately.
that we use drop shadows throughout our.
I know.
So,
yes.
yeah, so you can even see on the screen now with the yellow, questionable face there. There's a drop shadow around that thought cloud. So if used properly, I think we both agree that it adds a nice touch and makes things look a little bit more finished. And what is a drop shadow?
It's a shadowing effect. As you can see here, just like Kate had mentioned, you'll see my little my little thought bubble with the emoji of the thinking man. It looks like a little outer glow. It's just a little dark around that bubble. So it's just an effect that you can use to create any sort of emphasis to text or graphics on your pieces.
Did you hear that? What is it? It's a shadowing. Just listen.
Okay, so how would you make text stand out that is over an image beside adding a drop shadow? So that's a good question. Yeah, you can use another treatment, kind of like our callouts that we just discussed earlier. So you can make a band, or you can, if your background, you can lighten your background up, or if you're using a certain type of photo, you could do different effects onto it, like burning, or you can dodge out certain areas to kind of create a lighter effect. Okay, let's see. Okay, so do you have a software preference, Illustrator versus Photoshop, or do you use a combination of each? So that's a good question. I use a combination of all different softwares in Adobe. So I'll use InDesign if I'm laying out a very complicated thing with a lot of text. Illustrator, I used it for more logo work and vector images, and Photoshop for anything that's really photography. So depending on the elements that I'm using within my piece, I will kind of flip between whichever software is most appropriate.
So we got a question on the top of a rack card. Do you suggest the logo if the logo includes the activity? As we stated earlier, the part of the headline that's most important is really calling out, what it is that you do and the experience. And of course, if your logo does state what you do, then that would be great. But more often than not, you have to assume that somebody is not going to recognize your logo alone. So if in that top 2.5 inches of your rack card, you want to maximize that and really use that space to call out what you do. And if it does include that in your logo, then absolutely, that would be great. But if not, it may be of a benefit to you to have a call out there instead of just your logo in case it's just not recognized by somebody right off the bat. So another question that came through is, sometimes historical attractions aren't as exciting as, say, an escape room or a haunted attraction. What are some ways you recommend to make sure your rack card isn't being lost on a rack when it's paired with these kinds of attractions? And that's a great question. So I think you need to not compare yourself to other attractions in that sense, but you need to really focus on what you have to offer that you feel is going to be of interest to somebody looking for something fun to do, and maximize on that. So make sure you're focusing on your imagery, your pictures, what, using just uninteresting pictures can sometimes not be as exciting to somebody looking through. So I think imagery, good pictures, capturing the fun, someone having fun or being excited to be at your attraction, capturing that is going to really draw in someone's interest. So I don't think it's necessarily somebody standing there comparing, you know, which one looks more fun, but I think you really need to think of it as taking this opportunity to make sure that you're presenting your attraction as fun and exciting and interesting. And you can do that through the pictures and the text and the colors. And I think that's what's really going to get you to stand out, regardless of what your attraction is. Okay, we have 2 more minutes here, so we're going to take a look at what other challenges. Okay, so we got a question, does Higloss make a big difference? We both agree it does not. It's more the quality of the paper and the quality of the print. So it does not matter if it's glossy or matte, but what matters is the paper quality and the construction and how the piece feels and looks and making sure it's crisp and clear. That's really the most important thing, more than gloss or matte. That's really just a preference. Okay, and then the last question is, how often do you recommend updating the look of your brochure? You know,
it depends if you have certain exhibits or events going on with your business. If you want to do, it's really, it's up to you. If you want to update it more frequently, you can do so, depending on what you have going on. You could do smaller print runs and update, a couple of times a year if you prefer, or if you want to do, half a year. That's really your preference.
And if nothing's changing, then don't feel that you have to update it either. As long as, it's current with the information. If your information changes, then you should definitely be printing again. But if nothing is changing, then don't feel obligated to create a new brochure.
So are they.
Good. Well, thank you guys.
Thank you.
We appreciate your time, and we've enjoyed this. We hope you've enjoyed it as well, and feel free to reach out with any questions. I'll be posting the webinar on YouTube, and I'll send that out to everyone, okay? Have a good one.
Thank you.
Bye.
So they have there the whole time?
Mm-mm.
No.